بدنا نضوي الضوء مشان يبين اوضح next time يظبطوا معي.
انا بصير يطلع كثير عندي البورد. استاذ كل السيشن بيكونوا معموله ولا بس اول ثلاث
Okay, before we start with chapter 11, the first chapter, we will explain part of chapter 11 today. We will continue in the next section. Sorry, what's your name? Your first session? You took the A? You don't have to. If you didn't, you can take B. Even if you did not take the first part, they are not, it's fine. Who had a question? Or what was your question?
About the PMA or the project.
Yes.
Okay, I don't understand what are the subjects for.
Okay.
What do I have to do?
Yes. We are still in the first session. The topics need to be related to one of the chapters taken in the DD309B course. Okay? We will see if you can take any topic related to part A, but for now, it's better to be related to part B of the course.
And one of the chapters.
One of the chapters, for example, yes, business finance.
Any chapter, even chapter
even any of the chapters. However, since when you are going to choose your projects, maybe some chapters are not covered. I am not sure how much you can choose a chapter that is not yet covered because you don't know the information and it is not explained in class. Okay? You can look at the titles of the chapters, make your own research, come up with an idea, and we will discuss it either in class or during office hours. However, it is still early to do that.
Starting week 5 مثلا.
Yeah, maybe week 5, 6 we'll have a better idea, and at that time it's good to start. Okay, chapter 11, DD309B, book 2, part 1. This is the book, and since have some graphs. These, since some graphs are not available on the slides, they are in the book. You need to bring the book with you, all of you. Okay? For now, for the coming sessions, it is book 2, part 1, and as you can see, it is the first chapter in the book. It is chapter 11, because we already took 10 chapters in part 1, which is DD309B. Okay? This chapter, the title of this chapter is Environmental Valuation. The sections required are 4 sections. Section 1, the introduction. Section 3, the theory of environmental valuation. Section 4, revealed reference methods. Section 5, contingent valuation. Okay? As I told you, in the syllabus, for each chapter, you have the sections required. And you need to study. In addition to the slides, the study guide, you have the book. Okay? You need to study well from the book. It is a level 3 course. Slides are not enough, and you cannot write your own general information in the exams. In fact, in this chapter, we are going to talk about environmental, if you want, economics. Okay? Whenever we already took something related, but this is more, this chapter has many new ideas and concepts. We took something similar in DD309A when we talked about the CBA, cost-benefit analysis. We had marginal, we had the benefits and the costs, social benefits and social costs of projects, etc. This chapter is related in the concept, but it has new ideas. And as you can see here, we are going to study theories. You have the revealed preference method, the contingent valuation, and the theory of environmental valuation. All these theories aim at trying to give a value, economic value, monetary value of an environmental project. Suppose you want to have a road in a certain place in the mountains where you have a forest. Okay? You want to have a new road. The government decides to open a new road there. You need to see there are costs of opening this road. And some of them are social and environmental costs. You might be hurting the environment. This may, because forests, you may have animals growing there, certain species, you have nature. You want to have a road there, you have wood, etc. So there are environmental costs for opening this road. But there might be also benefits, or there are benefits for the society from opening such a road. Okay? You try, in this chapter, it tries to give ways on how to evaluate partially from a monetary view or money valuation of the cost, okay, and money valuation of the benefit. For some people, this new project may harm them. They consider it bad. Okay, there is externality, according to them. There are bad effects, negative effects of having this road. For others, there are positive effects. One of the ways, for example, suggested in this chapter, they tell you that in order to try to evaluate the project, you need to make analysis, survey, and analyze the data that you get to come up with an estimation. For every one of these models that we will see, or methods of valuation, they have advantages and they have disadvantages, or they are sometimes criticized. Okay? But because the environment is becoming more and more important and because of what we mentioned, like the global warming, climate change, okay, it has big costs on societies, on health. It might lead to health risks, not only financial losses. There might be health risks, and it may lead to people's lives being affected negatively. That's why we try to evaluate, and we should evaluate any project, okay? Any new project from an environmental point of view. There is a role, of course, for the government in this issue, because many projects are done by the government, and they may affect the society and the environment.
Infrastructure.
Like infrastructure, like power, energy, مثلا like zoo power for electricity in Lebanon. Okay, people around in the area are being affected negatively. You need to try and measure, estimate, quantify the effect in quantity, in value, in money. Okay. Not necessarily only money, but money is also one of the ways to evaluate the effects of project. Okay? Of a project on the environment, However, another example I can give you is like, suppose you want to have a new road or a new highway in a certain area. One of the effects, for example, is that some people may be suffering from the noise. People living near, there is the noise. It will affect their life. So this should be taken into consideration. Areas close to the highway or land close to the highway will lose some of its value because of the noise. People will avoid maybe buying their houses, etc. And the more you move far from the highway, the less the effect. So governments need to look into these factors. These models of evaluating environmental projects are a bit complicated, and we need to try to understand them in this chapter. So the learning outcome, what do we expect from this chapter? First, distinguish different income-based measures of changes in utility as a result of a project, and understand how measure is applied in environmental valuation. So we want to try to look into evaluating environmental project using concept of utility. Two, outline different concept of environmental value. Try to understand environmental value. Critically assess. We try to assess or study the revealed preference method and stated preference methods of environmental valuation. And finally, we evaluate complementary or alternative approach to valuation involving public deliberation. In fact, the last point is related to what we call contingent valuation. In this session, we will not finish the whole chapter. As I told you, we will start with the introduction. So this chapter talks about cost-benefit analysis, the CBA, as applied to environmental problems with a focus on environmental valuation. So we are doing like cost-benefit analysis of new projects that affect the environment. Examples of the applications of environmental cost-benefit analysis: land use decision. When you want to use a land, you should try to have environmental valuation. Study the cost-benefit analysis. decisions of building a road, airport, electric power station, all these decisions requires cost-benefit analysis and environmental valuation. What's the effect on the society, on the environment? Okay? Try to give it a value. Try to give the effect a value. بنحاول نقدر الفاليو قيمة للخسائر أو الإيجابيات لهالمشاريع على الانفايرمنت وعلى السوسايتي. Environmental valuation refers to what's environmental valuation, the definition? It is the theories and methods used in environmental applications of cost-benefit analysis to generate the monetary values for benefits and costs. It is very direct definition. Environmental valuation are the theories and methods that try to estimate or give a monetary value, يعني قيمة نقدية, monetary value مالية, of what? Of benefits and costs, okay, based on the concept of whenever we are going to come up with a new project, we should do the cost-benefit analysis, but here we use the environmental valuation to measure it, to measure the CBA from a monetary perspective. Why conduct a CBA? Of course, we should try, governments, for example, should try to improve wealth, standard of living of the society. Okay? So we should try to maximize the monetary benefit and less than cost. Yani the benefit minus cost should be maximized. In other words, we should try to maximize the benefit and minimize the social and environmental costs. And in fact, the CBA and the environment valuation are important because they are scientific and rational ways to measure advantages and disadvantages. We are using science, we are using theories, we are using rational ways, scientific methods to make the estimation of the benefits and costs or advantages and disadvantages of projects that might take place in the society or the country. Yes? It depends on the theory, and we have different methods to do environmental valuation. You will see that one of them involves utility. So CBA is used by governments in market economies usually. Usually non-market economies, there are some countries like Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, who are considered command system, not market economies. They do not usually use the CBA whenever they want to come up with, to start a new project. But countries like the US, the United Kingdom, countries with market economies, market means somehow free economy where government role is generally limited in the economy. Whenever they want to start up with a new project, they should make this analysis. This analysis is very important. It's costly. It's not cheap to study these effects, to do the benefit cost analysis. And in fact, before making a decision, if you want to be applying best practices, a government, before making a decision of doing this project or not, the CBA is important. Doing CBA, doing environmental valuation. We shouldn't say, for example, let's do a road here. No, you should study many factors before making the decision. So governments need to perform CBA in order for them to make or to take the right decisions regarding starting new projects. Clear? Yes? Yes.
Planned economy is based on CBA. Planned economy, social, kind of social systems is based on cost-benefit analysis?
Well, they do not do usually environmental evaluation of projects. Okay. What I'm trying to tell you here إنه دولة لازم قبل ما تقوم بمشروع جديد تعمل environmental evaluation، تشوف the cost benefit of this project, its effect on the environment, on the society, on the people's lives, health. What are the advantages and disadvantages, and we should try to give them a monetary value. Okay, even though some criticize some environmental methods. Why? Because they say that you cannot estimate the life of individuals in money. Or does the life of individuals in poor country different from life of individuals in rich countries? So there are some debates in these issues. We will see that there are criticism to the ways of measurement for environment valuation. So CBA is a method of resource allocation to better allocate resources. You know, in economics, we aim to reach efficiency. We aim to use resources in the best way possible. That's why CBA is an important method to reach or to have resource allocation. And resource allocation means to use resources in the most efficient way. Because you know resources are scarce, limited. CBA applied to environmental problems had turned out to be more controversial than CBA in general. You know that CBA can be applied to environmental problems as well as to other things. Okay? However, in this chapter we are concentrating on CBA, cost-benefit analysis applied to environmental problems and projects. Theory of environmental valuation. So this is section 3. Any questions before we start the new section? Clear the introduction? So the theory of environmental valuation. Most economists see environmental problems as rising from an absence of markets. Markets of environmental goods may be missing as these goods involve externality or have public good characteristics. Over the past 25 years, researchers in the social sciences and public policy have grown increasingly interested in how environmental valuation affect human behavior, specifically quality of life. So environmental valuation is important because it affects the standard of living, the quality of life. That's why we should do it. It's very important. It has advantages. If you don't do environmental valuation, you might have much more costs and disadvantages than the benefits, and the society will be harmed by the environmental problems caused. So, one of the reasons that economists think that there are problems with environmental problems, and they are increasing because there is no market. Usually when there is a market, there is demand, there is supply, there is prices. This will lead to efficiency, this will reduce externalities as well as other problems. True? So if there is a market, usually economists won't prefer to have a market. Market means demand and supply, and demand and supply is important to reach efficiency and to allocate resources properly. Okay? If there is no demand and supply on something, there is missing market, this will lead to market failure, and we studied market failure before. And another reason for why environmental problems are rising, because we look into environmental goods from the perspective that they have or they may involve externalities. What do we mean by externality? Externality is a social cost or a social benefit. So researchers, economists are now giving more attention. So this topic that we are studying today is one of the somehow recent and still its importance is growing day after day because of the environmental problems and because now we should do environmental valuation because it affects again the quality of life, it affects the standard of living of the people and the society. Theory of environmental valuation continued. The two distinct theoretical definitions of a proposal are compensating variation and equivalent variation. In order to study the theory, we should first understand two concepts. First one is called compensating variation, and the second is equivalent variation. Compensating variation is a measure of utility change introduced by John Hicks in 1939. In fact, compensating variation, maybe you have studied compensating variation before. It's a concept in economics introduced by John Hicks. In fact, it was not introduced to study it for environmental valuation. It was more for consumer surplus, pricing, etc. Compensating variation refers to the amount, this is the definition, of additional money an agent would need to reach its initial utility after a change in prices or a change in product quality or the introduction of new products. This is the definition, the old one, okay? Where in this definition, we are looking into compensating variation from a different perspective. Suppose prices go up due to inflation. Prices go up due to inflation. Your real income loses part of its value. To remain on the same level of utility, you need to be compensated. بالتعويض. To remain on the same, ترجع to return to your initial utility level of utility. This is compensating variation. And we used to study before, maybe you have studied Glass-Bayer index, the PASH index for measuring change in prices between 1 year and another. That's why the employees call for compensating variation when they should be compensated when there is an increase in prices. The definition that is in the book about compensating variation, which is related to our analysis here, it is the amount of money. Amount of what? Of money required to compensate an individual for a change in utility resulting from a project, because here we are talking about projects and environmental evaluation, by returning them to their initial utility level without the project. So suppose there is a new project. This project reduced your utility, affected you negatively. You should be compensated maybe by the one who did the project. If it is the government should give you the compensation. And the compensation should be money. Should be what? Money. So we opened a highway here. People living near the highway, there was no highway before, will suffer from noise. Okay? The cost of their house affected negatively. They might be affected by the pollution. So compensating variation means studying this effect and compensating those people with money to return back to their initial utility before the project. If the individual is in favor of the project, he would be then making a payment rather than receiving one. If you are getting benefits from the project, you should be, in fact, logically paying money. If you are losing, you should receive compensated money. We will see in a few minutes the figure. By contrast, equivalent variation, it's opposite, is the amount of money required to move an individual from their initial utility level to the level they would have were a project to be implemented. If a project is implemented or is not, in this case, it is not implemented. Equivalent variation means compensating individuals or moving them from one utility to a higher utility or to a different utility because as if a project was implemented. Okay? Suppose we should have a highway here, it will benefit many people. Let's make, I'm trying to give you my own example. And this highway was not, the project did not, is not implemented. Some people would benefit from this new project. Okay, they would benefit. Here, if you compensate them, you are doing what we call equivalent compensation, as if the project is done. Of course, equivalent variation is also compensation in money. The project here is not implemented. Now, we can see the figure 11.1, page 50. Let us have a look. If you have, those of you who have the books, page 15. Okay, as you can see, you have on the y-axis you have the income, on the x-axis you have environmental goods. Okay? Because some of you don't have the book, let us read the explanation, figure 11.1, and we will explain. Can you read it, please? No, figure 11.1 illustrates, yes. And a high voice, please.
Figure 11.1 illustrates this concept for the case of an environmental project where an individual favors the project and benefits from its environmental impact. The individual derives utility from both income and environmental goods, with more of each providing higher utility. Points of indifference curve U1 represent higher utility than points on indifference curve U0. The proposed project will move our individual project from point A on U0 to point B on U1. At B, the individual benefits from the same level of income as at A. That is, Y0 while obtaining more environmental goods by moving from E0 to E1. We know that the utility difference between A and B is U1 minus U0. But how do we quantify this in money terms? The compensating variation is equal to the amount of income, Y0 minus Y, shown as the vertical distance B prime. This is the money payment by the individual that would return the individual to utility level U0 while retaining the environmental improvement. By contrast, the equivalent variation is the payment to or from an individual that would be equivalent to the project in terms of its impact on the utility. In other words, the payment would move the individual to the utility level they would have if the project were implemented. On figure 11.1, the equivalent variation is equal to the change in income y minus y0, shown by the vertical distance AA prime. This is the amount of income that will move the individual from utility level
things should be clear for now. Did you understand? Did you understand what she read? Okay. Sorry, we don't have the graph on the board. Please look at the graph. You have on the y-axis you have the income, on the x-axis you have environmental goods. We are assuming that the income and the environmental goods provide utility for the individual. The more he is getting more environmental goods and higher income, he will have higher utility. So environmental goods affects the utility and income affects utility. Now if a consumer, we are assuming in this graph, or in the analysis, that the project that took place affected positively the individual. What do you mean by positively? Positively mean if he will be on a higher utility curve. So initially, the individual was at point A. Okay, point A, it is on the lower utility curve. Now the project is implemented. Okay, the project is implemented, and when the project is implemented, the income did not change for the consumer. It is still the same. The project did not affect his income, but now the consumer is getting more environmental goods. So he moves from point A to point B, so he is on a higher utility curve, but without a change in income. The question is, what's the question now?
How do we quantify this amount?
How do we quantify, or how do we compensate
So it's in money.
in money terms? The answer is, in money terms, we go from B down to the B prime, which is the initial utility is measured there. The difference, which is shown y0 minus y star, is the compensating variation. The difference between y0 and y star. How did we measure it? We go down from B to B prime or B star. Okay? How do we measure equivalent variation? It's very simple to understand the difference. Equivalent variation, the project is not implemented. If the project is not implemented, it means environmental goods did not change. If the project is not implemented, it means environmental goods did not increase. Okay? So the equivalent variation is equal to the change y double star minus y0. Y, as you can see, please listen. The individual, please listen, the individual was initially at point A. And let's assume the project that we are talking about was not implemented. Since the project was not implemented, then if it was implemented, then there is no increase in environmental goods because the project is not implemented. So we don't go from E0 to E1 because no environmental goods were implemented. The project, no environmental goods were added to the individual. No, because the project was not implemented. How do we measure how much should this person or this individual be compensated because the project is not implemented? We go from point A up to the higher indifference curve, assuming if the project was implemented, we would be on a higher utility curve. So instead of being at point A, he will be at point A star. So the equivalent variation is y double star minus y0. So the difference in compensating variation, environmental goods increased, while in equivalent variation, there is no implementation of the project, so environmental goods did not increase. And one point to watch, the compensating variation, it's the money payment by the individual that would return him to the initial utility. Okay? Did you understand the idea? Equivalent and compensating variation. So, compensating variation, please understand, it might be positive or it might be negative. If you benefit, you pay. If you lose, if the project harmed you, affected you negatively, you should receive money compensation called compensating variation in case the project again is implemented. If it is not implemented, we talk about equivalent variation. In other words, environmental goods did not increase. The project is not implemented. So we look at if the project was implemented, how much increase in income should be. This will be the equivalent variation, the difference. It is clear on the graph. The two concepts of compensating variation and equivalent variation are closely related to different methods of valuation in practice through questioning people. Example, if an individual favors a project, then measuring the compensating variation, by the way, compensating variation, it is written CV, involves the individual making a payment, so it will be measured using willingness to pay. So the two concepts again of compensating variation and equivalent variation are related to the different methods of valuation. By what? By questioning people. People may not have the willingness to pay. Okay? Even if they are going to benefit from a project, this is one of the problems. Even if you are getting benefit from the project, you may not have the willingness or the ability to pay for the project. This is an example. If an individual favors a project, means wants the project, it gives him benefit. Measuring the compensation variation involves the individual making a payment. So because he benefits, he should pay. Compensating variation is that he should pay from his own income. While if it does not favor him, he should receive money. So it will be measured using willingness to pay. Again, we come back to the book. Table 11.1, page 17. Page 17, you have the title of the table, Measures of Utility Change and Questions to Elicit Valuation. You have measure of utility change required. Is it compensating variation or equivalent variation? Okay. So valuer's preference. Who is the valuers? Who is people, yeah, individual. If he prefers the proposal, he should have the willingness to pay. If he prefers status quo and no change, he should have the willingness to accept. WTA. While for equivalent variation, if he prefers the proposal, he should have the willingness to accept. While if things remain the same, you should have the willingness to pay. So it's vice versa. It's opposite. If you if you favor the project, you should have willingness to pay in relation to compensating variation. But with respect to equivalent variation, if you favor the project, you should have the willingness to accept. Why? Because if you favor the project and to be implemented, and it will be implemented, you should be willing to pay. If you are not willing to pay, you should be willing to accept to remain on the same level, and you should, in this case, you are talking about equivalent variation.
Can you give us an example?
Yes, the example that I just gave you about maybe having, it can be private company or the government wants to implement a new project.
Okay.
If you benefit from this project, you should have the willingness to pay, to compensate, because you are getting what a benefit. Maybe the willingness to pay might be taxes, maybe things like that, or taxes usually are enforced, but willingness to pay because you are getting benefit from the project. If you are against, if you want the implementation, okay, and the project is not implemented, you should have, even though you get, suppose you get benefit, but the project that was not implemented, you should have, you get what we call equivalent variation, and here you should have the willingness to accept. Then I will give you money, but we will not implement the project. Or you will pay money and the project is implemented. If the project is implemented and you pay money, this is, you are talking about compensating variation. If the project is not implemented and you receive money as a compensation because the project was not implemented, this is equivalent variation. So it depends whether the project and the individual, whether the project is implemented, or you prefer status quo, means the same, the status as it is now.
It's usually optional because you can't make people pay for the project. Right?
Yes, it is usually optional, and that's why I told you it's complicated, and you have to see how many are willing, how many are not willing to. And that's why in some models that you will see, or the last one, for example, you need to prepare surveys, you need to ask people by email, by phone, or directly, face-to-face. You should, it's not easy. Usually the population who will benefit or who will be affected is 1 million. And you cannot ask all of them, so you need to change a good sample that will give you the right idea about the whole population. So, theory of environmental valuation, again, the compensation variation and equivalent variation may differ substantially, since they use different baseline level of income, consumption, and utility. You know, as we explained, as we already explained, there is a difference between compensating variation and equivalent variation. So, whenever since they are different and they may differ, you should know, and if you look at the graph that we already explained initially, the graph, not the table, you will see that the difference y0 minus y star is not equal to y double star minus y0. So if the project is not implemented in this example, you will see that you will get more money than if it is implemented. In this case, equivalent variation is higher than compensated. So since they differ, you should know which one is the appropriate measure. It may be that. So in order to summarize the points, to evaluate, to make an evaluation, monetary evaluation of the project, of its environmental, of its effects, to make it monetary, we can use either one, CV or EV, either compensating variation or equivalent variation. So equivalent variation, we assume if the project is not implemented, how much will we pay for the one who benefits from the project? If it is not implemented, how much, or if it is implemented, how much the one who benefit will pay as compensating variation because he got benefits from the project. If they are equal, there will be no problem. We will say in making evaluation of a project benefits, we will take into consideration the CV or the EV because they are the same. But since they are not equal, then you should know which one to use. And to give you, to make things even, if you want, easier to understand, suppose you have 10 people who will benefit from the project. So if you want to estimate the benefits from the project, taking into consideration compensating variation, you will say that each one will pay $100. So the environment valuation of this project is 10 times 100 or $1,000. This is, you evaluated the environment, you did the environment valuation. If there are 100 people who will benefit from this project, and you are using compensating variation, and each one will pay $10, $100, so in this case, 100 times 100 or $10,000 is the environment valuation. If we want to use equivalent variation, suppose the project is not implemented, in this case, $150 will be paid to 100 individuals. So if you use EV to do the valuation, it will be that 100 times 150 or $150,000. This is the benefit to the society because it will be paid to those who did not benefit. So this was the benefit if it was implemented. So here you did evaluation using the opposite way. Okay, so both ways, this is what I want you to understand. The CV and the EV are used for valuation. Okay, we will stop here today. So again, we explained first part related to the new chapter 11, and now we will stop this. We will end the session. See you next week. Please be on time, and good luck for this new semester. Sorry? Yes, I will take attendance.
layer بس
هيجي علي الكاميرا. Okay. So we will continue chapter 11, the first chapter in book 2, part 1, chapter 11. The title of the chapter, Environmental Valuation. We already explained the first part, which is the introduction and the theory of environmental valuation. And as I told you, you need to have your books with you for us to look at some graphs that are not included in the slides, but we will look at them in the books. So we introduced the chapter, we talked about the CBA, cost-benefit analysis, and we will start with the varieties of environmental value. Before we talk about varieties of environmental value, for those who were not here, this chapter talks about how to value economic problems and economic projects, how to give them a value, economic value. Okay? So environmental projects, when the government wants to build a road, construct a highway, It has, some people will benefit, some people, it might have costs on other. How to value these costs? We already studied before the cost-benefit analysis. But in this chapter, we look into theories that evaluate economically monetary value, money value of environmental projects and environmental problems. So, what are the varieties of environmental value? People are motivated to value environmental goods for many different reasons. These different motivations lead to different types of valuing environmental goods or services. So there are different motivations or different ways that people value environmental goods or services. The possible types of value involved, these are how people try to value the environmental goods or services. We have the use value and non-use value. Used value, direct, indirect, and option. Non-use value, altruistic, bequest, existence. We are going to see each one of these in table 11.2, page 18. But before, let us look at the definitions. What's the difference between use value and non-use value? The non-use value refers to the value that people assign to economic goods, including public goods, public assets, public resources, even if they never have and never will use it. From the word non-use. So even if you are not going to use the highway, you still can give it a value. You have certain, even though there is no direct use of the highway, if you are not going to use the good, the environmental good, you can give a value. We call this the non-use value. Use value is different, it's the opposite. If you use the highway, you are getting direct benefit. So we call this the use value. Okay? So the use, it is distinguished from use value, which people derive from direct use of the good. So if you use the highway, you are getting a direct benefit. If the highway is close to your house and you are going to use it to go to work, there is direct value you will benefit from this environmental, from this project, public good, which is the highway. The concept is most commonly applied to the value of natural and built resources. Use value treats environmental resources as useful inputs to the production of goods and services. You know, environmental resources and public goods are important for the production of goods and services. That's why we give it value. Okay? So the question here is how people value environmental goods. There is the non-use value and the use value. Non-use, even if you are not using the good, you can still give it a value. Okay? Even if you are not directly using the good, you have a value. Of course, it is lower than the use value. If you are using the highway directly, you are getting direct benefit from the project, you are considered, you give it a higher value. Of course, use value or direct value is higher than the non-use value. Now let us look at the table to see the different definitions for that fall under direct and use values. The use values, the table is page 18, okay, table 11.2, varieties of environmental value. The direct, example, value of use of timber from a forest or recreation in a forest. Indirect, value of improved air or water quality due to forest. Option, value of having the option to use the good in the future. So under direct, under use values, okay, under use, you have direct, indirect, and options. So if there is, project for having a forest near a certain village, okay, or area. The direct use, maybe you are going to use it to walk, you are going to use it for wood, you can get wood if it's allowed. Indirect, maybe there is less pollution in the area where you are living. And option means you have the option to use it in the future. It's close to your house. You may not now you are living away maybe now. Whenever you come back to the village, you can use the forest. Okay? So these are use values divided into direct use. This is the highest of the three. Indirect and option. I have the option to use the good, so this give it a value. I have indirect use or benefit from the good, this give it a value. And I have direct benefit from the good, this give it also a use value. So under use value, we have direct, indirect, and option. While under non-value values, we have non-use values, we have altruistic, which is value for person X from knowing that person Y gains utility from the environmental good. So maybe if you are living in a different area, the forest is not close to you, but you know that the other village are getting benefit from this and utility. When I say benefit, I mean utility from this forest. So this is a non-use value. You are not using it, but you are happy that others who you may know or not, are getting benefit from this project.
Acknowledging that it's a value.
It is valuable to someone.
It's valuable to someone else, not you. This is non-use value. Of course, if you are close to the forest, you are getting a use value, it's higher. But if it's, suppose we tell you are going to have مثلا حل مكب النفايات بصيدا وانت قاعد بشمال بطرابلس. Okay? There is a non-use value for you. And you are happy that there will be less pollution in the south, even though in the south, even though you are living in the north of Lebanon. Okay? This is the altruistic non-use value. The second one is bequest as altruistic value, but wise utility gain is after X, that maybe you will inherit a house. Maybe you will inherit the house in a village close to the forest after the death of one of your family. So in the future, you are going to benefit. There will be direct benefit in the future. Now there is nothing. So you consider this as bequest or non-use value. And the final non-use value is existence. Value from merely knowing that an environmental good continues to exist. Maybe you will be happy that there will be forests in Lebanon just for the idea. So this environmental good, which provides many benefits to the society, is going to be there. Forest will not disappear. There will be new one. Okay. So these are the non-use value.
The bequest value is always in the future.
Yes, it's benefit that you will get in the future.
How do you know it now?
How do you know it now? Maybe you are planning to buy a house in that area in the future when you have money. Maybe you will inherit راح تورث أرض بالمنطقة قريبة من الهايواي اللي راح ينعمل أو قريبة من الفورست. By the way, I just want to tell you something. Don't think that these ideas are not important. They are very important. Whenever the government wants to, for example, have an airport in a certain city in the United States, they need to study to make what we call environmental valuation. And there are consultants who will use these models to try to give value. If the cost is higher, you should not build it, or you should change the place. If you want to have a highway, shall we have the highway here or in another place? This depends on many factors. You need to look at the environmental value. This is one of the factors that affect the decisions of policy makers. يعني هالنوع من evaluation environmental goods أو تأثير المشاريع على الانفايرمنت وعلى السوسايتي، هذا دور كبير لمين؟ للدولة. والدولة قبل ما تاخد قرار مثلا بفتح اوتوستراد او تبني مطار او تعمل مصنع، اذا كانت هي بدها تبني مصنع، لازم يكون في دراسه لهالموضوع، للانفايرمنتال فاليو. كيف بتتم؟ من خلال هالمودلز اللي عم نشوفها نحن، بنشوفوا النون يوز فاليو مثلا، بنشوفوا اليوز فاليو. اوكي؟ You need to look at the total economic value of the project. Does its benefit exceeds its cost? And how do you measure it? No, it's complicated. How do you measure such? What's the benefit of a forest here? Maybe for you, in money terms, it's $500. For someone else, it's 1,000. People have different opinions on how to value environmental goods. That's why it's not easy, especially if you are building in a city where you have 10 millions. You cannot ask all of them their point of view. So the government, there are ways, models that try to estimate and give a monetary value to environmental goods. So the goal of any environmental valuation method is to capture total economic value. We care about the total economic value. The total economic value of an environmental good is the sum of all its use and non-use value. How do we calculate the total economic value? We need to add the use and the non-use. We don't have to ignore the non-use. So even someone living in the north will benefit. There will be non-use value for people living in the north of Lebanon in case a new project like the one I gave you as example was done in the south. Okay, so total economic value, you add the use and the non-use value. Is it clear? Any questions? So now the revealed preference method. Another method for environmental valuation is known as the revealed preference method. What does this method say? Revealed preference method look at people's actual behavior in markets as a guide to how much they value the environmental good in question. Preferences for the non-market environmental good are revealed by behavior in markets that are generally assumed to be at equilibrium. Hedonic pricing method is that a good is made up to a series of characteristics that together determine its value and therefore its market price if it is done. Which one? Okay. So what's the revealed preference method? Revealed preference method, it looks at people's actual behavior on how much they value the environmental good. So they look at the actual behavior, yani actual benefit. Okay? From their behavior, you will know how much the benefit or the value of this project will be. For example, maybe if you see that many people coming to هون حرش بيروت، شو اسمه؟ هيدا هو
سبع الخير
سبع الخير. ايه حرش سكون. If you see too many people coming here, you understand that in Beirut, actually they value such project. And their actual behavior is that they come frequently. Okay? So the behavior of individuals who will be using this project is important in measuring the value. Their actual behavior will help us in making the decision of the value. So, reveal preference method looks at people's actual behavior in markets as a guide to how much they value the environmental good. Preferences for non-market environmental good are revealed by behavior in markets that are generally assumed to be at equilibrium. We have the hedonic pricing method, the HPM, is that a good is made up of a series of characteristics that determine its value and therefore its market price. They are telling us here, well, in order to value an environmental good, you look at its characteristics. كيف مثلا إذا أنتم عم تشوفوا you are trying to value a car، بتشوفوا موديلها، بتشوفوا قد ايه ماشي، بتشوفوا إذا موتورها منيح، بتشوفوا إذا فرشة منيح. Okay, based on this is عندي حوادث أو لا. Based on this you can give it a price or a value. The same, the hedonic pricing method, you look at the environmental good, what are its characteristics, and based on its characteristic you can look at its value in the market, or you can try to estimate its market price. I just want to tell you something here. Not only the government provide goods that we need to do for them environment valuation. Also private sector. Whenever you build a new industry, for example, you need to have environmental valuation. Okay, and you are going to affect your surrounding and your society. HPM, which is the hedonic pricing method. Example, the price of a house depends on its location, size, age, condition, etc. It's the same example, but I gave you about a car. So if you want to buy a house, you look at its location, size, etc. So the hedonic pricing method looks at the characteristics. يعني characteristics يعني مميزات. شو بيميز هالenvironmental good؟ شو الcharacteristics يلي له؟ وبased on this we can decide on its market price. Another example is comparison between a house. This is a better example if you want. It's to look at the prices of two houses, one near the road and another which is far from the road. So the one that is close to the highway, its character, you are going to hear noise and you will suffer. So one of the characteristics of this house is that it is close to the highway. This will reduce its market price. The other one that is far, people can sleep calm and you don't have cars passing and you will not hear noise. This will increase the value. So the example is comparison between house prices near to the road with those further away. Can value the road noise. So if you want to value an environmental good, which is the road noise, احنا بدنا نشوف road noise هيدي إلها كلفة، ما هيك؟ road noise إلها كلفة. إذا بيت قريب في بيتين مثل بعضهم، واحد قريب من الهاي واي حقه $100,000. البعيد من الهاي واي حقه $110,000 بنفس المنطقة. يعني الرود نويز كلفتها $10,000. رخصت البيت كونه قريب من الهاي واي $10,000 مع انه نفس البيت نفس الكاركترستكس، بس هيدا اغلى ب$10,000 لانه ابعد عن النويز. فالرود نويز we can use this way to evaluate what? The road noise. The road noise has a cost. It's $10,000 in this case. Because being far, يمكن نبعد 1 mile بعدنا بنفس السيتي بنفس الاريا بنفس الزون بس واحد قريب واحد بعيد، القريب ارخص ب $10,000 because of the اذا اتفقنا انه كل شيء باقي متشابه، يعني نفس المواصفات البيتين، يلي قريب ارخص ب $10,000. so we can use this information to value what? The road noise. And the second step is to compute how much house prices change when road noise change by 1 unit. يعني بنشوف كمان اذا زدنا كل ما تزيد النويز او كل ما نقرب قد ايه عم يتغير السعر. هذه الطريقه second step. يعني بنصير نقرب شوي، بنصير نشوف كل ما نقرب عم يتغير السعر. لا عم يتغير اذا كل المواصفات متشابهه مع بعض، لانه عم تزيد الرود نويز. Well, it's similar as idea, but it's not elasticity.
But one, we're studying one factor for road noise. There can be many factors.
Of course, many factors
How can we
affect.
do it?
But here we are trying to value an environmental good, which is the road noise. We're not giving value to the house. If you are valuing the house, you look at its price, its size, its location, road noise, is it close or not? There are many factors that you look at. But if you want to look what's the value of road noise, this good, the road noise, you are trying to give value to this environmental good, which is the noise that comes from the roads. Does it have a value? Yes. So, suppose you decide to have a road here, okay? You should know as a government how much you should pay the people whose houses will be close to this road. Why? Because there is noise, and the noise has a value. We should give them back some money in order to retain the same utility. We studied this in part A. ما درسنا بالبارت A. في عنا شو هني؟ عنا ال CV, compensation variation, والequilibrium variation. So it depends if I want to give back money for those who are losing because of this new road. I should give them some compensation to come back to the same utility before the new road exists. هلا road noise is negative. road noise يعني أنا بس صار في طريق هون رخص بيتي $10,000 لأنه قريب من الطريق. هيدا دليل إنه الرود نويز خسرته غالي. بس يمكن أوقات إذا كان عندك محل هونيك صار في طريق أو هاي واي أنت استفدت، صار في more customers. You should pay in this way. So it depends. If you are getting a benefit, you should pay. Okay. في equilibrium variation. وإذا you are being affected negatively, you have to pay to the government, for example. Valuing life is one of the important examples of HPM is the derivation of monetary valuation for loss of human life based on what so-called wage differential methods. Economists argue that they do not value human life directly. They attach money values to changes in the risk of death. Many environmental applications of CBA require valuations of life because they assess policy options like climate change policies. One of the examples of applying the HPM, hedonic price method, is to value life. Suppose a new يعني معمل بعد او اندستري، بس معمل بيطلع اشعاعات نوويه نيوكلير، اوكي؟ is going to be constructed in a certain area. The effect, there is a risk now on people's life. The theory, HPM, is used to estimate the value of human life, because there is a risk that humans might lose their life because of this new project. So لما نعمل new project بهالمنطقة هيدي بدنا نفكر انه من الكوستس انه في عالم بدها تخسر حياتها او ممكن تتعرض لامراض. شو الريسكس انه عالم تخسر حياتها؟ اذا خسر واحد حياته قد ايه الكلفة الماني؟ اوكي؟ هلا فيها ديبيت، ما شو قال لنا هون؟ No, I know risk of that, but it's controversial. يعني فيها كثير أخذ وعطاء الموضوع. في عالم بيقولوا إنه you cannot give value to life. However, here they are valuing the risks. You are at risk. Maybe you will get certain, you will get cancer, for example. Okay, so there is a risk, and this risk should be given a value, money value. We can do that using the HPM. And they tell us here also, whenever you are trying to estimate climate change policies, you know that some policies that government might take might affect the climate change. So it will have a risk on people's life. Okay? So giving value to this is important when measuring environmental project or environmental goods. So under the revealed preference method, we have the HPM. Okay? We have the hedonic pricing method, A1. 2, we have the travel cost method of valuation. Offer another approach to the indirect revelation of preferences for non-market environmental goods. The environmental good and the market good are complements. Example, individual visiting a beach values the beach at least as much as the travel cost incurred in visiting it. The main problem with the travel cost methods, as with other revealed preference methods for deriving valuation, is that they generally fail to capture non-use values. The travel cost method of measuring environmental goods or non-market environmental goods. What do we mean by travel cost method? They tell us, suppose you go to the beach. The beach is for the government, free. Let's suppose it's free. How much do you value for you? What's the money value that you give to this trip to the beach? It's at least equal to the cost of traveling to go to the beach, using your car, paying fuel. Right? This is at least the cost that you are willing to pay to go there. So the value for you is equal to this cost, at least. Is this true? Okay, because you are paying to go there the travel cost. So we are assuming there is no entrance. If you are paying entrance fee, of course you need to add it because you are willing to go even though there is travel cost and there is entrance fee. But they are telling us here we cannot use this to estimate value of the beach, for example. Why? Because there is non-use values that we did not take them into consideration. We just took into consideration the direct use, but there might be other factors. Maybe you are just happy to be living close to the beach. Okay? There is indirect or there is a certain utility because you know that some people are going to the beach and getting benefit from being to the beach. close to the beach. So this non-use value is not considered in this method. Here we just we assume that how much is the travel cost that you pay for you to go to the beach. This is equal to this gives value to the service or to the environmental good.
طب ليش الفاليو تبع البيت ايكوال للجاز او هون؟ ليش مثلا مش ايكوال للانترنس مثلا بدك تحط باني انترنس غير محل كمان تجوز البيت بس شو خص الجاز بالبيت؟ إذا كنت قاعد حده عم تنزل ليه مش عم تحط يعني ما في فاليو للبيت؟
No, I'm trying to tell you here, suppose you have a beach here in Beirut and the government want to build something in the beach and it's not anymore going to be used as a beach. The government owns it. Okay? How do you estimate, if you want to look at the value, some people are not anymore able to go to the beach. Okay? So what's the cost of doing another project? The cost is that many people are traveling, maybe coming from the north, from the south, to come to the beach and swim for free. They are paying high expenses for traveling. So this is part, or this is one way of looking, of trying to estimate the cost or the value, and the cost will be the value. Based on the cost, you give value. But as we said, the problem with this method is that it does not capture, and it does not take into consideration non-use values. Any questions? You can ask. نسمع صوتك. Okay. The last one, contingent valuation. The CVM, contingent valuation method. So under revealed preference method, we studied the hedonic pricing method, where we look into the characteristic of the environmental good. The second one is travel cost method. There is the CVM, the contingent valuation. CVM supposes that individuals can simply be asked through survey questions what they would pay for an environmental good if there was a market. CVM is the most dominant or commonly used way of estimating environmental goods. It has many advantages, but it has also restrictions, or it is criticized for certain reasons. We're going to see this model. It's simple, however, of course, in order for you to do a professional CVM, you need to pay a lot of money. CVM means you ask people that are living close to a certain, for example, if you want to measure the road noise, we ask people who are affected, we prepare a survey questionnaire, and we ask them, how much do you value road noise? Based on the answers, different answers that we collect, we do certain analysis, we come up, there are 5 steps, in fact, in this CVM. We come to the conclusion, which is we will be able to give a money value or monetary value to this environmental good, in case it is in the market. So if this good is not in the market, and we want to introduce a new environmental good to the market, we use the CVM or contingent price evaluation method in order to evaluate or give a value, monetary value to this environmental good. يعني أنا إذا قبل ما ينزل environmental good يصير موجود، بدي ادرس الفاليو، طب بدي اعطيه فاليو كيف شو بعمل؟ بعمل سيرفي بسأل الناس المعنيين او المستفيدين او المتضررين من هيدا الكود، بنقول شو بتعطوه فاليو based على الانسرز اللي بناخذها من هالكويشنيرز والسيرفيز، بقدر انا اعمل فالويشن. هذه الميثود اسمها contingent valuation method. مثل ما شايفين انه منا هينه، اول شيء يمكن يكون في مليون مستفيد او متضرر من هذا المشروع او من هالجود. بقدر اسال المليون، اذا بدي اسال المليون قد ايه الكلفه؟ بدي ادفع في تايم، في ريسورسز، في اناليسز.
ممكن الاشخاص اللي ما نسالهم يكون رايهم غالي لسانهم.
مظبوط، بس انت هلا هذا موضوع ثاني. بس ان جنرال اذا بدك تسال الكل شغله كثير صعبه. بدنا ننقي عاده سامبل من البوبيوليشن، مجموعه نسال. يمكن 10,000 يمكن 5,000. وبيست على السامبل نحن نعمل جنراليزيشن، يعني نقدر نقول انه اجانا هيك بيست على الانسرز اللي اجت الفاليو هالقد.
بس ما بتكون سبيسيفيك.
هيدا ممكن ما يكون اكيوريت، هيدا one of the criticisms، لانه يمكن ال 5,000 ما يمثلوا اراء المليون. يكون في نوع من تحيز لرأي معين. اوكي؟ ثاني شيء لحاولوا يخففوا من الكلفة، صارت هلا السيرفيز بتتم عبر التليفون، ايميل، اونلاين، فيسبوك يمكن، يعني عم يفتشوا على هذه السيرفيز اذا بدها تنعمل بطريقه نروح نبرم، يعني اتس كوستلي، بدنا نحاول نعمل طرق معينه، بس بنفس الوقت كمان لازم يكون تضمن انه اللي عم بيجاوب عم يكون في جديه objectivity. So the CVM is the dominant valuation method, but it remains highly controversial because it is based on making surveys and questionnaires. You cannot, as I said, take the answers of all the people involved. CVM reliance on people's answers has been questioned. CVM, yani CVM method gives value to the environmental good based on the answers of the people. Maybe they give, each one has his own valuation. So it's, and why do I have to accept, maybe people are not professionals to give values. So that's why there are some questions. But since people are the, when I talk about people who are involved, who will be affected, who will benefit, or who will pay a cost for this environmental good. I don't ask anyone, I ask people who are involved. There are 5 stages in the design of CVM survey. For you to apply the contingent valuation method, you need to prepare a survey. There are 5 stages. First, define the good to be valued. You need to be clear what good are we trying to value. What environmental good is going to be valued. You need to make it clear. Point number 2, design the payment vehicle, donations and voting. We are going to see it in details. Design the elicitation format. Again, we will see it in detail. Determine the survey administration, and 5, sample selection. So these are the 5 stages for the survey. You know what survey is?
Yes.
Okay? We are going to see each one of these 5 in details. But before, why the contingent valuation is called contingent? Because people are asked to state their willingness to pay contingent on a specific hypothetical scenario and description of the environmental service. We give them, people are asked to, how much will you pay for this environmental good in case it was introduced to the market? How much are you willing to pay? We call it contingent because it's related to the idea of willingness to pay. So because it is willingness يعني قد ايه مستعد يدفع الشخص يلي بده يستفيد من هالبرودكت او من هالانفايرمنتال جود او هالانفايرمنتال سيرفيس بحال وجوده. يعني اذا نحن بدنا نعمل حديقه هون بهيدي الاريا قد ايه مستعدين انتم تدفعوا هيك for this project لانه it's an environment راح يكون هذا الانفايرمنتال جود الموجود راح تستفيدوا منه. لاولادكم بيلعبوا منطقه ما في شجر، بيلعبوا بجو ما في pollution، بيقدروا تتمشوا etc. في many benefits. Contingent valuation is one of the only ways to assign dollar values to non-use values of the environmental goods. Values do not involve market purchases and may not involve direct participation. So they are telling us here that whenever an individual or one of the people who are surveyed give a value, they might be giving the direct or the use and the non-use value. The importance of this method is that you are getting directly from the, if you want, the consumer or the one who is going to benefit from the environmental good. So if he tells you, I will value this environmental good for $1,000, he is including, of course, the use and the non-use values. The conceptual, empirical, and practical problems associated with developing dollar estimates of economic value on the basis of how people respond to hypothetical questions about hypothetical market situations are debated constantly in the economics literature. There is a lot of debate, كتير نقاش about the contingent valuation method. هيدا النقاش انه سببه انه we are giving dollar value. نحن عم نعطي قيمة مادية ل environmental good or service استنادا لأجوبة اجتنا من أفراد معنيين بهيدا الجود. ممكن معنيين بهيدا الجود بحال وجوده، نحن عم نقول له بحال وجد، لأنه السي بي ام بدها تنعمل قبل شو؟ قبل حصول المشروع. إذا في حدا يقول لي بعد ما أنا suppose عملنا سي بي ام طلع الانفايرمنتال جود اور سيرفيس الفاليو تبعه $200,000 بنعمله او ما بنعمله؟ بنشوف قد ايه بكلف، بنشوف انه بيست على سي بي ام طلع معي the dollar value of this environmental good is $300,000. I made it now a dollar value. Okay? دايما يعني مش هيك، لما بدنا نفتح طريق كم شخص مستفيد؟ قد ايه افادتهم ان دولار فاليو؟ قد ايه كلفة فتح الطريق؟ بنشوف اذا بنعملها او لا. هذا اللوجيك، هيك لازم يكون. نعمل هاي واي بين لبنان وسوريا والاردن، اوكي قد ايه كلفته؟ كلفته $2,000,000، طب شو بنوفر؟ مين راح يستفيد؟ قد ايه راح تزيد التجاره؟ هيك هيدا اذا اي مشروع، هيدا اللوجيك. كمان اذا كان مشروع بيئي او مشروع له علاقه بالانفايرمنت او environmental good or service، the same idea. So the question is why is this being, why we have a debate? Joel, why we have a debate?
Because we cannot predict the real.
No. The debate is because we are trying to estimate the dollar value of the environmental good based on responses of people. عم باخذ أجوبة العالم وعني استنادا لأجوبتهم أنا عم بعطي قيمة مادية للمشروع أو للخدمة.
Maybe they are lying about the
Well, there are many factors. Maybe they are not accurate in their answers, maybe they didn't take it seriously, maybe they gave answers because they want this good to be produced or to be introduced to the market.
يعني استاذ ما يكون الجواب يعني انه مع المشروع كله يقدر الفاليو تبعه؟
أكيد، ومع أو مش مع أو ضد عم نسألك how much do you value in money؟
لا قصدي هو المشروع اذا بده يمشي.
انت السؤال يلي بده يجيك لك اذا كان عم ينعمل سي في ام، قد ايه بتعطي فاليو ماديه؟ قد ايه بتعطي قيمه لهالمشروع او لهالخدمه؟ اوكي؟ قد ايه بتثمنها؟ فانت شو رايك؟ قيمتها بالنسبه لك الماديه قد ايه؟ So now we will look at the 5 stages of designing a CVM survey. ركزين معي. 5 stages of designing a CVM survey. The first step is related to the definition of the valuation problem. We need to discuss or to define first what is the problem or the good that we are going to be introducing to the market. Example, valuation of a proposal to build a road in an area of woodland. شو يعني woodland؟ عندنا غابة وررنا بدنا نفتح فيها طريق. بدنا نعمل valuation. What do I have to look at? شو يعني أنا questions should be related to what? Look at the scenic view of woodland. Woodland as a habitat of rare species. No panel recommendations. Okay? طيب. Look at the scenic view. أول شيء I'm going to lose a view, a nice view. هيك. People living close to the woodland, they will lose a view. They will lose the ability of walking in this woodland. They will also, maybe the woodland is a habitat of rare species. يعني في بعض ممكن تكون محمية. في بعض الحيوانات أو نباتات الموجودة نادرة ما كثير بتوفر. So, in this case, we shall include, since this woodland is a habitat of rare species, etc. So whenever I want to ask the question, I should ask people who will give answers to such questions. Okay, you are going to lose the view, you are going to, rare species might disappear. You cannot anymore have a walk in the woodland. So there are many things, and these have to be evaluated. You are going to evaluate based on this. These are the possible losses or costs in case this road is going to be constructed. The second step is designing the payment vehicle, which is hypothetical scenario through which payment is made. Okay, how payment is going to be made? Is it through donation? Okay, donation يعني تبرع, etc. Stage 3 is the design of the elicitation format. The initial focus group, the researchers, would ask general questions, including questions about people's understanding of the issues related to the site, whether they are familiar with the site and its wildlife, whether and how they value this site, and the habitat services it provides. أول مجموعة بعدين بنحط مجموعة الأسئلة ما هيك؟ في عندي initial focus group وعندي later focus group. initial focus group أول شيء بركز على مجموعة معينة researchers etc. وبدي اخذ منهم اجوبه. يعني في ناس بدها تعمل تقييم لهيك مشروع، ممكن اسال الناس الساكنين حد المشروع، ممكن اسال ناس خبراء بيئيه، ناس عندهم معلومات بهذا الموضوع ليقدروا يعطوني شو قيمه مثلا هالسبيشيز الموجوده، هل هي كثير رير ولا لا؟ ما استعملنا كلمه نادر. اوكي سو the researchers would ask general questions. بيسألوا أسئلة عامة مثلا people's understanding of the issues related to the site. هل أنتم بيسألوا لما نيجي نسأل الناس الساكنين حول المشروع بنسألوا عندكم فكرة عن أهمية الوودلاند السايت يعني هالمكان هيدا؟ هل أنتم عارفين شو في بهالوودلاند من species من animals من plants وغيره تريز وغيره؟ هل انتم معكم خبر باهميتهم؟ يمكن يقولوا نو، يمكن يس. how do you value this site؟ شو بتعطوا قيمه لهالوودلاند؟ انتم بنظركم شو قيمتها؟ قيمتها منا بس شو حقها يعني، منا بس الارض قيمتها الوودلاند. انا اذا حطيت وودلاند قضيت على شجر، قضيت على نباتات، قضيت على مكان للعالم تتمشى فيه. السؤال الثالث انتم باي طريقه you give value and the habitat services it provides. هل عندكم فكره عن السبيشيز الموجوده والتريز وغيره؟ In the later focus group the questions would get more detailed and specific. بالمرحله الثانيه الاسئله هي اسئله اول شيء كانت شوي عامه، بعدين بدي ركز اكثر على اسئله على بعد ما انا initial focus group يمكن تكون كبيره، في عندنا بالمرحله الثانيه بكون بركز على اشخاص عم نسبه اقل، لانه مثل ما قلنا ما في يكون عم بسال الجميع. The question would get more detailed. بالمرحله الثانيه من الاسئله او بالمرحله الثانيه الاسئله رح تكون مفصله اكثر. To help develop specific questions for the survey as well as decide what kind of background information is needed and how to present it. لأقدر أعرف بالنهاية كيف أنا، لأنه أنا بدي أعمل valuation بهمني أحصل على الأسئلة اللي هي مهمة لأعمل valuation. بلش بالجنرال questions بعدين بحصر الأسئلة الأساسية اللي بتفيدني بالvaluation process. Stage 4 is to determine the survey administration. What is survey administration? It is to make decisions about the survey itself, including whether it will be conducted by mail, phone, or in person. How large the sample size will be, who will be surveyed, and other related questions. In-person interviews are generally the most expensive type of survey, but they are recommended by NOAA. NOAA, they issue recommendations, okay, for valuing environmental goods. It's an organization that issue principles، يعني بتعطي مبادئ ومعايير لازم نلتزم فيها لما نعمل contingent valuation أو valuation environmental projects or goods or services. So شو يعني survey administration؟ إدارة السيرفي الإحصاء يعني عم نعمله. بدنا نقرر حجم السامبل سايز، بدنا نسأل 100 شخص أو 1000؟ هذا سؤال. بدنا نشوف الكلفة، بدنا نشوف كيف بدنا نسأل، بالتليفون، بالإيميل، أو in person directly. أفضل بيقولوا طريقة هي direct، means to meet the person and ask him face to face. But this is very expensive. هيدي كلفتها عالية. بس هيدي الأفضل. Stage 5 sample selection. It's about choosing the group which to draw the sample, and the second is to draw a random sample. Ideally, the sample should be a randomly selected sample of the relevant population using standard statistical sampling methods. You know there are in statistics ways to choose sample. These are the statistical sampling methods. أهم شيء to choose randomly. ما نكون بايس، ما يكون عندنا بايس، ما ننقي والله إنه ناس عارفين ممكن يكون عندهم نفس الأجوبة. بدنا ننقي البوبيوليشن، هي حجم الناس المعنيين بهذا المشروع مليون. إذا بدي نقي ألف لازم نقيهم بشكل راندوم. شو يعني راندوم؟ عشوائي. اوكي؟ وفي عندك معايير احصائيه statistical لازم اخذها بعين الاعتبار. لانه يطلع عندي تقدر انا استنتج يكون منطقي بالفالويشن تبعي وتكون عم بطلع بموديل صحيحه. ما بيجي مثلا نقي ألف كل الألف مستفيدين، مثلا ما بنقي حدا متضرر، أو بنقي كل الألف قاعدين حد الفورست مش بعيد 2 مايلز. لازم آخذ بعين الاعتبار ماني فاكتورز لما بدي نقي السامبل. أهم شيء يكونوا راندوم عشوائيين، يكونوا بيغطوا يعني يكونوا يعطونا فكرة عن كل population. Finally, so the CVM, before we move to the IPCC controversy, the CVM, yani contingent valuation method, is the most commonly used method of evaluating or giving a monetary value, a money value, dollar value to the environmental goods and or services. It is based on surveys or questionnaires asked to relevant people who are involved in the or affected by the project or by the good or environmental good or service. It is criticized because of the depending on people's responses in giving values. However, in order to do and it's also expensive in general. However, there are 5 stages. Most important stage and most important thing to do in this CVM is to construct the survey and to know and to administer the survey, to know the questions that should be included in the survey, and to know who I am going to ask. Who are the people that I'm going to ask? I should choose randomly from the whole population. The sample should be chosen randomly from the whole population size. So, valuing life revisited, the IPCC controversy, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, يعني panel مجموعة يلي معنية بموضوع التغير المناخي يلي هو موضوع كتير مهم واللي بدنا نشوف بعد الوقت آثاره أكثر على الحياة البشرية رح تتأثر بالتغير المناخي اللي عم بيصير. So the IPCC is the key. شو هي هي؟ It's the international organization. هي مؤسسة دولية for the assessment of climate change. تدرس التغير المناخي. It was established by the United Nations Environment Program. The United Nations هون المتحدين اللي أنشأتها. All the valuation methods by economists give the lives of poor a lower value than those of rich. IPCC has been the site of intense arguments about the monetary valuation of a human life. IPCC انتقدت طريقة الفالويشن اللي عم بتصير. مثلا بدنا نشوف الكلايمت تشينج قد ايه عم يأذي. عم يعطوا فاليو للعالم مثلا باليونايتد ستيتس لانه their life is affected، عم يعطوها فاليو اعلى من اللايف للفاليو بافريكا مثلا. Okay? عم يعطوها higher value. The question is, this concept made the IPCC criticize the valuation by economists, how they are valuing. You cannot, according to them, you cannot usually give value to human life. It should be invaluable. However, there should be no distinction, no discrimination in valuing life on developed countries or in developing countries. يعني إذا كان عم نحكي developed دول متطورة أو دول نامية غير متطورة فقيرة، ما لازم نعطي value لللايف بالdeveloped بشكل أعلى، لأنه this is not ethical. هيدا منه أخلاقي. Okay, so valuing when we are valuing or trying to give a dollar value to climate change, قد ايه كلفة التأثير المناخي؟ التأثير المناخي مين عم بيأثر؟ يمكن عم بيأثر على السمك وعلى الحيوانات، بس عم بيأثر على البشر. طيب يمكن تأثيره على البشر بأفريقيا أكثر من تأثيره على البشر بأمريكا، أو تأثيره نفس الشيء. نعطي إنه we value lives in US أكثر من هون، إنه الريسكس على US كونه بنحطها بفاليو دولار فاليو معين، وعلى أفريقيا فاليو معين ثاني. هيدا unfair, unacceptable, especially when we are talking about people who should be equal. Life are equal. Okay, so this is valuing life. أنا بس هون بعد في شغلة. Valuing life is used in valuing life. ما بقى تحكوا ورا. Valuing life is important in environmental valuation. يعني لما نحن بدنا نعطي الكلايمت تشينج، بدنا نشوف الافكتس تبعه، بدنا نشوف شو تاثيره على الحياه البشريه، مضطرين لانه في ريسكس على الحياه البشريه. بس في ناس بينتقدوا انه ما فينا نعطيها دولار فاليو، فمشان هيك الريسك از سو هاي، لانه بالنهايه اي شيء بياثر او بيضر بشكل خطر على الحياه البشريه، ما بقى فينا نقول انه كلفه التغير المناخي 10 مليار دولار على العالم بالسنه، لا. لانه الناس موت الناس ما بقى عم فينا نعطي فاليو، صار even not measured and we cannot give value. يا ما فينا نعطي فاليو، واذا بدنا نعطي فاليو ما فينا نكون عم نميز. So this chapter 11 talks about environmental valuation. We talked about compensating variation, equivalent variation, and we saw the graph. We talked about revealed preference methods, the HPM, hedonic pricing method, and the valuing life, and travel cost method. We also discussed the contingent valuation method based on survey and questionnaires, and finally the IPCC controversy. Do you have 6 and 7 section 6 and 7 are not required. Okay, you have the syllabus and you know what is required and what is not required. Who has questions? Yes. Well, I don't know yet, but you will be asked, for example, discuss one of the evaluation, for example, environmental evaluation methods. Discuss the CVM, give examples. Discuss the HPM. Discuss etc. Are you new to the Yes, you new. Did you understand yes? What's HPM, hedonic pricing method? HPM. You give value based on characteristics. Like when you value a house, you look at its location and its size. Give me an example of revealed preference method of environmental valuation. How come? Have you been in class? Were you in the class? You were not in the class? Okay. Revealed preference method, we explained. The HPM, travel cost method, two methods fall under revealed preference methods. We have the HPM, we have travel cost, and even valuing life. Talk to me about contingent pricing method, evaluation method, CVM.
To make surface questions about the people who have the general idea about what they want from the project, if they accept it or not.
No, not actually. It's not about accepting or not. We want them to give value. All of this is valuation. بنعمل تقييم مادي للمشاريع، للانفايرمنتال كود، للانفايرمنتال سيرفيس. بدنا نعطي مونيتري، قيمة مادية، دولار فاليو. مش do you accept or not. اوكي؟ ورنط نقول انه في 1000 قبلوا 200 ما قبلوا يعني بنعمل المشروع، لا we are trying to look at the dollar value. monetary value يعني القيمة المادية النقدية. يعني that's why you need to look at use values and non-use values. What's the difference between use values and non-use values?
Use values when on a direct benefit from
Or indirect, or option that you may benefit in the future. Please listen, indirect, and altruistic, bequest, existence. It means there will be, you are not using, there is non-use value, but the altruistic non-use value is when you are happy because others are gaining utility, others who may be your colleagues, your friends, your relatives, or others from the people you are living with in the country. Second, bequest is when you benefit in the future, and existence
when we are having just other existence.
from the project. Other questions? Okay, we will take around 10 minutes break. We will come back to discuss the TMA of the project, okay, in details. Thank you. Please turn it off. Okay, ناخد attendance. موسى، ملاك، مارون، نمر، لارا، محمد شكر، مصطفى عبد محمد، شاب العباد، نادر ليلو، حياة، علاء، ريساء، هاني، رفقة، أنطوني، نادر
ولا كلمة أخرى.
غادة علا نيكول جوال بول روان زينة بهاء جاد بيطار بيباري. اوكي شو اسمه؟
مصطفى عمر.
أنا شفتي؟ Okay, Shabab Sabaya. In the remaining part of this session, we will discuss your project. Your project is due on April 26, 2013, so you have time. However, we will give you the instructions today so that you can start soon. Okay? This TMA or project is 20% of your final grade. You should usually start preparing from week 3. Unlike previous TMAs, the TMA topic is the same for all students in the group. So unlike previous TMAs where you have all one topic, here you have, each one has his own topic. The topic of TMA, please listen. The topic of the TMA, please turn on the light. There should be a place where you turn on the light. You pressed it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, it's on, eh? So, each student chooses his own topic. The student selects a topic in the area which interests him or her. So you choose your topics, not I choose your topics, not me. His or her task is to write an extended essay of 4,000 to 4,500 words on the project of her or his choice. So you choose the project, you choose the titles. Of course, you can talk to me, you can discuss with me in case you have certain projects in your mind or you don't know what to choose. We can agree together. The aim of the project is to enable the students to learn and develop different skills, apply, explore concepts, hypotheses, theories, analytical techniques, and methodological skills. So this is a project. It's like a graduation project. You are going to include everything that you know. And all your skills should be shown here. Whether analytical, analysis, of course theories related to your project should be there, statistics, and you are encouraged to apply quantitative analysis. Means trying to come up with a model where you have dependent, independent variables, you run the regression, and you should know this using SPSS. Let me continue and then I will take your questions. This can be achieved through identifying an economic problem, addressing the question. So you need to find an economic problem, then try to solve or find solutions to this problem, to this question. You need to collect data, either qualitative or quantitative. But as I told you, quantitative might be encouraged, but you can also use qualitative. You know what's the difference? Qualitative like survey and questionnaires, etc. Quantitative is more numbers and model regression analysis. Making academic judgment about the work of other studies, carrying out research interviews, or working with econometric models. Econometric models is using the SPSS, the regression, dependent, independent variables, R-square, etc., testing your hypothesis. Or you can make interviews, questionnaires, surveys, etc. This TMA, in this project, you need to divide your work in a certain, according to certain criteria. Okay? كنت قسموا البروجكت حسب بطريقة معينة. كل اللي بدهم يقسموه بنفس الطريقة. بنبلش في شيء اسمه literature review. شو يعني literature review؟ literature review يعني إذا أنتم عم تعملوا مثلا عن موضوع لنفترض financial systems، أنظمة المالية، suppose بدكم تشوفوا شو في ثيوريز بتحكي عن الأنظمة المالية، شو أنواعها، شو في غيركم شو حاكي عنها. يمكن ترجعوا تقرروا تعملوا انتم شيء خاص فيكم انه تقييم للسوق المالي او للفاينانشال سيستم والستوك ماركت بلبنان. اوكي؟ تسالوا ناس مختصين، تعملوا كوانتيتيف اناليسيز اتسترا. الليترشر ريفيو هو مراجعه تذكروا فيها غيركم من باحثين، يعني غير بالكتب using books, internet, e-library, other resources, to see what are the existing theories, models, etc. related to your topic. Okay, هذا اسمه literature review. So literature review which look at a number of books, which one, and articles. Remember, you have to write 4,500 words. No plagiarism allowed, of course. From a selected part of the course or from DD202 course. You can, topics can be related to DD202 that you already took, or to DD309, A or B. Yani you have a choice. Okay? You have a choice. Halal. It's your decision, even though if you choose a DD309B might be good for you because you will be writing about something and studying something that you are going to use for exams, etc. It will help you in studying the course. However, this is not obligatory. It's your choice. Okay? Some chapters in DD309, and maybe in 2 weeks' time maximum, or maybe next week, you should come up with certain project and discuss them with me. So, some chapters in DD309B or many chapters are not covered. We only covered one chapter. However, you can look at other titles of chapters, see if they are interesting for you, read the chapter, read about them, and see if you want to write about it. Did you get me? And we didn't, but the difference is with DD309A, we already explained them, you know them. So you know the topic, you know what you might be talking about. Here, it will be something new for you, as if you are reading the chapter, you want, and of course you can get my support. You compare and contrast, in the literature review, you compare and contrast authors' analysis of a topic and come up to some evaluation of the strengths and weaknesses of their arguments and provide your contribution. You analyze what others did. First you state what others did. أول شيء تقول شو قالوا غيرك، شو الثيوري بتقول. تعطي أنت your own contribution، رأيك. إذا في strength، في weaknesses، ناقصة، في أشياء منها مأخوذة بعين الاعتبار. Part الثاني هو field work project in which you use your own. أنا part A كنت عم تستعمل بالمبدأ غيرك شو قال، theories شو بتقول، بالكتب شو محكي عن الموضوع اشياء رئيسيه واساسيه، اكيد ما راح تحكوا كل شيء نقال، بس اشياء رئيسيه مهمه مرتبطه دايركتلي بالموضوع. In part 2, it's your work now. In this part, you have the qualitative data based on some aspect of the course. You plan how to collect data, acquire it, and then make an evaluation of what you have managed to do in the light of one or more of the theoretical aspect of the course. So, in this part, you collect data, qualitative data. Qualitative data means, suppose you want to evaluate the financial system in Lebanon. You need to prepare questions, ask them to people who are related to the financial system, bankers, stock market manager, banks managers, financial institutions, central bank, for example. You ask, you come up with data, you analyze them. You might be also doing in the qualitative analysis, you might be also collecting data and numbers that you might be using later in the quantitative analysis. In the quantitative data analysis project, which you use Microsoft Excel or SPSS, we are not asking you to use new software that you are not aware of. SPSS, you know the basics of SPSS, or you can use Excel. Okay? You already did something similar on a small in DD309B or in 202B. So a quantitative analysis is used to analyze a large data set using regression analysis. For this case, your research paper should not exceed 3,500 words. If you go into quantitative, you can write just 3,500 words, less than the qualitative. The qualitative, you need to write more. If you go in the quantitative, you write less. Quantitative, you decide, you want to see, for example, not related to the course, but you want to see what affects the economic growth in Lebanon. شو العناصر اللي بتأثر على النمو الاقتصادي بلبنان؟ اوكي؟ لنقول الدخل، لنقول الاستثمار، لنقول التجارة. اوكي؟ بتاخذوا هالفاريبلز هي ديبندنت هي اندبندنت، يو ران ريجريشن بتشوفوا قد ايه الكوفيشنتس، بتعملوا اناليسيس ار سكوير، بتشوفوا قد ايه الار سكوير كلوز تو 1 او لا، بتشوفوا قد ايه الايرور، بتشوفوا ستاندرد ايرور، بتشوفوا قد ايه you can also test the hypothesis, t-test, etc. Okay, you write the model that you reach. Therefore, you need to decide which of the above three options you want to follow. You may ask your tutor if you are still uncertain. The choice of topics is up to you, and it is recommended pick a topic which genuinely excites you. So it's at the end your own topic. To be logically speaking, here they tell you you need to do either one of them, either quantitative or qualitative or literature review. Usually, what you can do is you write some literature review, then you do the qualitative, or you write some literature review and you do the quantitative. So the choice is between qualitative or quantitative, but literature review usually, of course, you will start up by theories, it's not independent. But here in the literature review, they tell you later, you give your contribution, your analysis, etc. So it's somehow the same. Did you get me? But you need to do literature review. You cannot immediately start with the qualitative from zero. You need to do some overview of your project, of your idea, some theories briefly. Then you go into the qualitative analysis, which is completely your own work. Or you can start with literature review and go then into the quantitative analysis. But if you choose the quantitative, you can write only 3,500 words. This is an advantage to encourage you to go into quantitative analysis. Quantitative means using SPSS to find a relationship. You want to find it between variables. So you need to model, to come up with a model. So therefore, you need to ask, or you need to decide which of the above 3 project options you want to follow. You may ask your tutor, as we said, I am ready to help you. The choice of topic is up to you, again. In choosing a particular topic, it is important to decide upon a set of objectives. Try not to be too ambitious and focus on narrow course related topic. Remember that you have only 10 weeks to prepare your project and you need to meet your cut-off date. Even less than 10 weeks. If you feel that you still need further assistance on how to prepare your project, you may refer to one of the websites that explain to you the necessary steps in writing a research paper. For example, you may visit the following websites. These are websites that you can use in case you are having problems in writing your research paper. And of course, you can ask. Allah, the question is, what do you need to do? Okay? The student must first prepare a proposal within 7 days, clarifying the title of her project. بدكم تعملوا شو؟ proposal، اقتراح للبروجكت بدكم تعملوا. شو بده يكون في بقلبه؟ title of your project، project description، تحكوا شوي title بعدين تشرحوا شوي عنه. Methodology, are we going to go into the quantitative or qualitative? The tutor must approve the student's proposal before writing his or her TMA and grade his or her proposal with complete information specified below. This grade will be part of the TMA total grades. So the proposal is very important. The proposal is very important. At the end of the TMA, you will submit your proposal with the project. But the proposals, of course, should be submitted within 1 week. Now you have a week, the next week, to start thinking and to write your proposal. Proposal اقتراح عن أي موضوع حابين تحكوا عنه.
ممكن يكون كذا سطر بس.
مش كذا سطر. في تايتل، في برودكت ديسكريبشن، في ميثودولوجي. هلا بنفت لك ديتيلز، ممكن يكون نوصل لحد صفحتين ونص. لا ما فينا نغير لأنه ما في وقت. مشان هيك معك أسبوع تعطيني إذا I approve you go on. إذا لقيت إنه البروجكت صعب تلاقي داتا أو معقد كتير أو موضوع يمكن ما تقدر يعني تلاقي انفورميشن متوفرة كتير، يمكن أنصحك بالتغيير.
طيب شو في شيء معقول صعب
ما في والبعض يعني ما في شيء قصة صعب وسهل حسب الموضوع. هلا شو المواضيع؟ تفتحي توتو اللي بحب أو بال 309A قطع معنا
توتو مايكرو مايكرو
توتو DD توتو AOU-B. في عنا قطع بال 309A، عنا قطع عن utility maximization هيك consumer dependency كمان و consumer sovereignty. قطع معنا عن الفيرمز وشوي ماركتس مضبوط. قطع عدد كبير من المواضيع. فيكم تنقوا واحد من هالمواضيع. يعني تايتل للشابتر، استنتجوا منه تايتل ل your project. في عندنا رح اقطع انا وياكم هلا كونه موجود مثلا book 2 part 1. شو في تايتلز بقلبه؟ في عندنا environmental valuation يعني already شرحنا. في عندنا social discounting and intergenerational justice. في عندنا economics, ethics and climate change policy عن تغير المناخ. تأثيره على الإيكونومي. How to evaluate. في عندنا utility and decision making بس عم نحكي more from not the same as utility for consumer. عندنا wage determination, discrimination and segmentation in labor markets يعني التمييز بقلب سوق العمل. تمييز according to race, gender, color, religion أو شخص مثلا ما بنوصفه للونه أو شخص ما بنعطيه سالري بنعطي الميلز أكثر من الفيميلز بيكون في تمييز. هل هالشيء موجود؟ وين موجود؟ وموجود. شو تأثيره على الإيكونومي؟ على الإيكونوميك على النمو. في عنا the economics of care, caring for children, etc. هيدا ما بعرف إذا حدا بيحب ينقي. هدول المواضيع هون. في عنا هونيك more financial عن financial institutions, financial markets, banks, etc. Banks regulations. These are interesting.
في topic بالبارت 1 borrowing.
في عن borrowing والinvestment. I think في عن financial. Do you have anyone got the second part? Okay, we have them in the syllabus. Okay, في عنا عن financial markets, financial like banks. Okay, bank regulations. Okay, so you may choose one of these topics. No, you can include them. No, the project you have to what you studied in class. It's not related to the class. It's a project that you are preparing in a topic that you like. You find it exciting. So the proposal. Please listen. Your proposal should intend to convince your tutor that you have a worthwhile project paper and you have the work plan to complete it. Regardless of the topic you are going to write about or the methodology you are going to adopt, your proposal should include sufficient information and address the following questions. The proposal بدكم تعطوني اياه لازم تجاوبوا على عدد من الأسئلة. أكيد بدكم تحطوا title, project description, والmethodology بدكم تعتمدوها رايحين quantitative ولا رح تروحوا qualitative.
فيها نحط لك بالجنة؟
لا، اثنين وليترشر ريفيو كثير، يعني ما بهارد ورك مثل ما قالوا لي.
لا نستعمل انه مثلا اذا نعمل ريجريشن نحط عند
صارت quantitative. اوكي. دائما انا مثل ما عم قلت لكم ليترشر ريفيو او مراجعه كثير بدها تقطع عن اني كيس حتى لو ما نقينا الليترشر ريفيو لحاله. So what are the questions that you are going to answer? The questions are what you plan to accomplish. لو بدكم توصلوا. Why you chose this topic? What do you want? يعني بس بدكم تقولوا لي مثلا انه بلبنان financial system هيك. I know it. بده يكون في some creativity, some value added. بده يكون في شوية contribution منكم. تطلعوا لنا بنتيجة بفكرة جديدة بمعلومة برأي يكون له value. Why you want to do it? Why you chose this topic? Maybe it's important. Climate change مثلا. It's a very important topic. United Nations, country officials, economists are doing so much research on this topic because it affects our lives, it affects future generation, it affects our natural resources. So كل هذه reasons أسباب مقنعة لأنا نقيت هالموضوع. أنا بحبه يمكن الموضوع بس كمان مش ما بيكفي. بده يكون في فائدة من اختيار المشروع. How are you going to do it? What's the methodology? The methodology يعني مثل ما قلنا رايحين quantitative qualitative or qualitative. في كمان فيكم تنقوا literature review بس مثل ما قلت لكم literature review عادة is common. You include literature review whether you are doing quantitative or qualitative. You need to give some theories أو introduction. ما هيك؟ هي بتكون بقلبها بده يكون في مراجعة للtheories. In choosing a style of your project, ask yourself, what kind of works excites me? Do I want to find out information for myself about the detail of people's lives, or am I happier working with big set of data which describe large populations? The things that interest you will be the things you will best and that will give you the best buzz, the biggest buzz. Yani, search and choosing your topic, try to do a project that you really like working on it. And you have freedom, and this is good. You are not obliged to do any project, you have a choice. As long as, of course, it is directly related to economics and specifically to 2 or 3 online courses. You review again. At the end, you are going to give your opinion. Your proposal should have 1 to 2 pages only. Not 10 pages the proposal. Maximum يوصل ل 2. And contain the title. أهم شيء العنوان. يكون في عنوان. Okay. In case, مثلا, you have the. Suppose you want to talk about banking regulations. Suppose Basel III اللي هي اتفاقية أحدث شيء أحدث معايير لازم تلتزم فيها المصارف لحتى ما يصير عندها أزمات وانهيارات بالقطاع المصرفي بالعالم. هيدي بحطها السنترال BIS Bank of International Settlement يعني بنك التسويات الدولية. The committee Basel committee because they meet in a place called Basel in Switzerland. That's why it's known as Basel standards, Basel III. You have because you have Basel I, Basel II, Basel III. Basel are standards. They tell us that there are credit risk, operational risks. There are many risks that systemic risk, that banks suffer from. How to mitigate or how to avoid these risks? What is the role of regulators, central banks? Okay? So, if you decide to do this and you want to see banking regulations, suppose you want to apply banking regulations in Lebanon. So if you are applying banking regulations in Lebanon, you start by telling us about banking regulations in general, the standards, شو هي الأنظمة والمعايير والمبادئ اللي بترعى عمل المصارف بالعالم وشو نطبق منها لبنان. اوكي؟ بتبلشوا بدكم أول شيء تحكوا شو في ستاندردز لتقدروا تشوفوا إذا لبنان طبقها أو لا. هيدي أول بارت هو literature review. ثاني بارت صار شغلكم، تعملوا انترفيوز، تشوفوا بوكس، انترنت، تعطوا رأيكم، تقابلوا ناس، تعملوا كويستشنير، تقولوا شو الستاندردز وتسألوا does Lebanon apply this or this or this وتكونوا فاهمانين. هيدا صار لي qualitative part اللي هو شغل. Okay, so your proposal should be 1 to 2 pages. It should and contain the title and a brief summary. It should include the project question. What are you trying to answer? What question is, does Lebanon abides by international standards in banking? The project problem, the problem is if banks are not well regulated, there will be financial risk and the crisis and bankruptcy. يصير في انهيار بالمصاري. The rationale for the study, الغاية اللي هني إقرأ. The hypothesis, if any, إذا عندكم hypothesis, you want to test it, you mention your hypothesis, and the method that you are going to adopt, مثل ما قلنا عم نكرر, quantitative or qualitative. Please submit your proposal to your tutor within 1 week. Do not start writing your project until you receive an approval from your tutor. That's why I prefer to get it next week, so that I give it to you 1 week later If I have comments and advice, or I advise you to change it, then we will discuss it one-to-one. I know that you know each other, not all of you may know each other, but I prefer that you do not choose similar topics, in case possible, as long as in case it's possible. To have a variety is better. Maybe at the end of the semester, each one will tell us briefly, even though we might not grade that, briefly about his project, so others will learn what each one of you did. It's good to share. This is what we usually do. Sharing information about this project. In 5 minutes, you tell us, what did you do? You tested banking regulation, you checked banking regulation in Lebanon. You found that Lebanon is abiding or respecting international standards, etc. Okay? You give a summary to your student, to your colleagues. After you get the approval from your tutor, you may start reading, collecting, analyzing, writing your project. You may allocate your time as follows. Weeks 1 and 2, choose the topic and identify the goal. So you chose your topic. Next week, اللي بعدها إجا approval. So now you need to find resources. Where do I need to get data from? Internet, library. You need to use the e-library. It's much better to use the e-library. You need to use, if you are having qualitative, you need to make questionnaires, surveys, get answers on the surveys, include the surveys and the answers, summarize them in your paper. You do them to include them. You can give your own view, but you should. Reading and taking notes. You found the resources, عرفت مين الريسورسز اللي بدك تستعملها. Start reading them. Start taking notes which one are important. Rephrase what you want to write, because as you know, plagiarism is very critical, not allowed. I don't need to repeat, you all know these rules. You are there is your project will be checked for plagiarism, and if it is high, your grade might reach 0, okay, and you will be penalized. So compile the structure of the essay, check how you are going to write it, start compiling means putting together data and your theories, etc. You write the body, you write the conclusion and the introduction. Usually you write the body, then the introduction, and finally the conclusion. Okay? The introduction is in many respects the conclusion written in reverse. Revise the paper and develop a final draft, and finally provide your list of references and submit your project. Do not forget, of course none of you will forget, the references and Harvard style, and within the TMA you are level 3 course. It's not acceptable not to see a good reference. It is not acceptable. Please, all of you, in case you need extra support, please ask. I am ready. But you should be aware of the Harvard style before the class.
Friday?
Friday, 5 to 6. Okay, or we can, in case you have a question, I can answer you after the class. Oh, no. Plagiarism, as you can see, there is a separate section about plagiarism. Even though you know it, we will rediscuss it. If you submit a project that contains work that is not your own, without indicating this is to the maker, you are committing plagiarism. This might occur in an assignment 1. You copy word by word directly, You use text downloaded from the internet. You copy or download figures, photographs, pictures, or diagrams without acknowledging the resources. You can, but you should put the reference. And you cannot exceed the 26% of plagiarism. Copying the work of others would be counterproductive to your goal of understanding the coursework and the real achievement. If you copy, it means you did nothing. It means it's not your work. It means this is cheating, and you are cheating first yourselves. So this is not acceptable. Most students will not wish to take such a negative approach to studying, and the university does not tolerate it. The JMA ما بتسامح بهالموضوع. We do not tolerate it. We are very strict regarding plagiarism. Very strict. Okay? Questions? So for next week, bring each of you, look at the 202 titles, 309A and B. Choose a topic that you like, that is interesting for you. If one of the topics that is not yet explained, you find it interesting for you, read that chapter or read on the internet about the topic. Come up with the title, project description, and methodology that you would like to be using, and then you will get my approval. So for next week, you have this. In case you have questions, you can send messages on Moodle or send me an email. Okay? Questions? Do you have any questions about your project? Next week, please, all of you. Okay? No questions? Okay. Thank you.